Welcome to OOTO TV, the out of the office investigation from our past into the future of personal health and psychophysiological actualization. This time we're discussing structured water, psychophysiology, and the human body. Okay, let's start with something we all think we know, right? It's what you learn in, third grade science class? Water is H2O. It's ice when it's solid, water when it's liquid, and steam when it's gas. Simple. It's chemistry 101, really. The absolute foundation for how we understand this stuff that makes up, 70% of our bodies? It's supposed to be predictable, simple. It's the story science has told us for a very long time. But Bizam, what if that's not the whole story? What if that simple, foundational concept is missing the most important piece of the puzzle, especially when it comes to biology? Exactly. What if there's a fourth phase? Not just some, scientific curiosity, but a phase that could be the very matrix of life itself, a structured, orderly, liquid crystalline state that behaves in a way that just completely defies those simple categories we all learned in school. We're not just talking about water in a glass here. We are talking about the water inside our cells, the invisible scaffolding that gives our tissues their form and their function, the medium that could be the key to understanding, everything, from how we generate energy to how we feel. That's an extraordinary proposition, Beshab, and one that, demands some extraordinary evidence. So today on OOTO TV, we're going on a journey to explore this so-called fourth phase. We're going to start by grounding ourselves in some hard data, a really fascinating clinical study. Then we're going to investigate the mind-bending physics that might explain these results. We'll even touch on the controversial idea that water can hold information, and maybe even our intentions. After that, we'll get really practical and explore how you can apply this knowledge. And all along the way, we'll keep coming back to our central theme, psychophysiology, that profound, undeniable link between the mind, the psycho, and the body's physical functions, the physiology. Right. So before we get carried away in the world of theory and speculation, we have to begin with what we can measure. We need clinical proof. So we're starting with this really compelling 2019 study by Korotkov and his team that put this idea of structured water to the test. And they did it in a rigorous, real-world setting, specifically looking at its effects on the human body and mind. The researchers' goal here was incredibly clear and direct. They didn't just, ask people, hey, how do you feel? Nope, they set out to quantify the impact. They measured everything you can think of. Body composition, blood chemistry, and even the subtle, incredibly telling rhythms of the heart. They wanted to see if this so-called structured water had any real, tangible, and statistically significant effects on human physiology over 1 month. And what's so impressive about this, Bishamb, is the rigorous design. This was not a casual experiment. It was an open, randomized comparative study. They took 30 adults, split them into 2 groups. The experimental group, they drank a liter of structured water every day. The control group drank the exact same amount of regular bottled water, all from the same source. And they tracked these multiple biomarkers for a whole month, which gives us a really comprehensive and scientifically valid picture of what was actually happening inside their bodies. And Pasteur, the results they were absolutely astounding. I mean, look at this. The group drinking the structured water saw a significant reduction in their total body weight, and it was driven by a loss of fat mass. And when I say significant, the p-value tells us that the probability of this happening just by chance was less than 1%. Even more impressive was the improvement in kidney function. That's a huge marker for the body's ability to detoxify itself. And meanwhile, the control group, just drinking regular bottled water, they saw no positive changes at all. Nothing. But for me, Bisham, the most compelling data here has got to be the heart rate variability, or HRV. I mean, this is a powerful, objective way to measure how well your nervous system is handling stress. For the structured water group, every single metric moved in a positive direction. Their adaptability went up, their parasympathetic rest and digest system got stronger. But just look at the control group. It is a mirror image of dysfunction. Their stress levels went through the roof. Their fight or flight response shot up by over 55%. The contrast is it's incredible. One group became measurably more calm, more centered, more resilient, while the other became more frazzled and stressed. And the only difference was the type of water they drank. This is psychophysiology in action. And here's the real kicker. The study was done during a time of year when people are naturally more prone to getting sick, feeling down. The control group followed that expected pattern. Their health markers actually declined. But the structured water group, they completely defied the trend. Their adaptive capacity, their vital energy, it increased. It's almost as if the water was acting like a shield, a buffer, protecting their entire system from the stresses of their environment. You're listening to OOTTO-TV with research by author Paul Bullo.
So, okay, those clinical results are pretty mind-blowing, right? But they leave us with this huge question. How? How is any of this even possible? How can simple water do all of this? Well, it turns out there's a brilliant researcher at the University of Washington, Dr. Gerald Pollack, who has a really powerful answer. And Paster, I think it's going to change the way you think about H2O forever. Okay, so Dr. Pollack has shown that when water comes into contact with the hydrophilic or water-loving surfaces inside our bodies, things like proteins and cell membranes, it undergoes this incredible transformation. It's no longer just chaotic, jumbled H2O. It spontaneously organizes itself into this beautiful hexagonal lattice, a gel-like liquid crystal. This is what he calls exclusion zone water, or easy water. He's even shown its chemical formula is actually H3O2, and it holds a negative charge. This, he argues, is the water of life itself. And this image right here gives you such a powerful visual of the difference. On the right, you've got what we call bulk water. It's like a chaotic mosh pit of molecules, all just bumping into each other randomly. But on the left, you have structured, easy water. It's like a perfectly synchronized dance, every molecule in its right place, moving in coherence. This incredible organization, that's the key to its power. It lets it conduct energy and information in a way that chaotic water simply can't.
And right here, this is the most incredible part of his work. When this negatively charged easy water forms inside our cells, it actually pushes the positive protons out into the bulk water around it. This separation of charge creates a literal battery, a constant source of electrical potential. And you want to know what charges this battery? Radiant energy, particularly infrared light from the sun. Our bodies are literally designed to be solar-powered. So how can structured water affect our mental and physical health? This is how. It's the fuel that powers our cells, our brains, our very consciousness. Exposure to the elements that build this structured water is absolutely critical to our mitochondrial and cellular bioenergetics.
Okay, so we've seen that water can build these incredible energetic structures. But what if it can do even more than that, Pasteur? What if it can hold information, memories, maybe even our intentions? This is where the science gets really wild, and where we start to see some of the most beautiful and, frankly, thought-provoking experiments in the entire field. The late, great Dr. Masaru Emoto, he pioneered a truly revolutionary idea. He wanted to see if our thoughts and our feelings could have a visible, physical effect on the structure of water. So he exposed water to different words, to music, to intentions, and then he'd flash freeze it and photograph the ice crystals that formed. What he found was nothing short of miraculous. And just look at these results. On the left, the water that was exposed to the words love and gratitude formed a crystal of breathtaking beauty and complexity. It's a perfect visual expression of harmony. But on the right, the water exposed to you disgust me formed this chaotic, fractured, ugly mess. It's as if the water itself was physically recoiling from that negative energy. The implication is just staggering. Our consciousness can literally shape matter. Now, Béchamp, I have to jump in here. While these images are undeniably evocative and they are stunning to look at, we have to be intellectually honest about the science. Emoto's work has been widely criticized by the scientific community for a lack of rigor. His experiments weren't conducted under double-blind protocols, which means experimenter bias can't be ruled out. And there's the really critical issue of cherry picking. We have no idea how many malformed love crystals or beautiful hate crystals were simply discarded because they didn't fit the narrative. So while I love the poetry of the idea, we have to be careful to distinguish these artistic images from hard scientific proof. That's a fair and an absolutely crucial point, Pasteur. The scientific method demands that we question everything. But what I find so fascinating is that this line of inquiry continues. Researcher Vita Austin, for example, has developed a simple yet profound way to visualize what she calls water's hydrointelligence. She freezes water in a petri dish that's placed on top of an image, and as you can see, the results are just as stunning as Emoto's, suggesting water has a kind of responsive memory. You're listening to OOT for TV, with research by author Paul Bullo. So we've looked at the clinical science and the more, let's say, speculative philosophy of structured water. But this brings us to the big, practical question. If this is a key to better health, what are the key elements for creating structured water? How do we actually get more of it in our own lives? Well, the great news is the answers are all around us in nature.
And the methods are surprisingly accessible.
The best source is often a natural spring, where water has been energized by the Earth's pressures and minerals. But you can actually mimic nature's flow right at home by vortexing your water. That just means stirring it in a spiral. The water inside fresh, raw fruits and vegetables is incredibly structured. And as Dr. Pollack's research showed, direct sunlight exposure is one of the most powerful things you can do to charge up the water that's already in your cells.
This slide just perfectly captures the genius of nature, doesn't it? A breaking wave is this massive, swirling vortex of energy, and it isn't random. It follows these beautiful, universal geometric patterns. Water in nature is meant to be wild and free and constantly moving. It really makes you wonder, Pastor, if our modern water treatment systems are doing us a disservice. This research strongly suggests that drinking purified water through things like osmosis and desalination, which strips water of its natural minerals and structure, may not be good for our health. It might be clean, but is it alive?
And of course, where there's a new scientific discovery, a market inevitably follows. There are now all sorts of devices out there that claim to restructure your water, from special funnels that create a vortex to high-tech wands. Now, whether they replicate nature's genius effectively is a matter for more research, but it certainly shows how compelling this whole idea has become.
So, we've covered a lot of ground today. Let's just step back now and think about the big picture. How does this new understanding of water fundamentally change our view of health, of healing, and maybe even the very nature of life itself? For centuries, we've held the view on the left, water as just a passive solvent. It's just the stuff that carries the important things, like nutrients and minerals. In this old view, health is all about what's dissolved in the water. But this new research presents the paradigm on the right, water as an active, intelligent medium, a liquid crystal that's constantly receiving, storing, and transmitting energy and information. In this new view, health depends not just on the purity of the water, but on its structure, its coherence, its aliveness. So, what's the crucial takeaway from all of this? It's this. The evidence we've seen suggests that structured water creates a healthy environment for cellular growth and success. It's like upgrading the operating system of your cells. When your internal water is structured and coherent, everything just works better. This research points to a foundational principle for achieving optimal health.
And this brings us right back to the ultimate question we asked at the very beginning. Can structured water improve our human health? Well, based on the powerful and growing body of evidence we've looked at today, the potential is undeniable. The research strongly suggests that the structure of the water we consume and the water we build inside our bodies can be linked to preventing illness and increasing longevity.
So we'll leave you with this one final thought. If the 70% of you that is water is not just a passive substance, but a living, intelligent crystal that is constantly listening to its environment, then you are far more powerful than you've ever imagined. You have the ability to shape your own reality from the inside out with every thought you think, every word you speak, and every ray of sunlight you soak in. The question is, what kind of reality do you want to create?